It's just so small.
Where it just jettisoned.
Hey there, this is the Small Stuff Podcast. My name is Kyle Roebuck. This is the intro. Let's start the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Real quick before we jump in, make sure you're following Small Stuff Podcast on all social media platforms. We're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I mentioned on the last episode, we're also on Twitter. If you want to go follow that, go for it. It's just a recycled Twitter of my own. So maybe I'll start posting on it. I don't know. Make sure you're following Small Stuff Media on Instagram. Also about that with OB. And follow Roebuck Visuals if you want to see some photography work from me. That's it. Let's jump in. Maria Satira. How are you? I said it right?
You did.
Yeah, cool.
Yes, you did. You nailed it.
It's not even like a hard name. I'm just like, I was so worried about it.
It like almost
I
rhymes.
psyched
it kind
myself
of like
out.
a lot of the same letters
Yeah.
are in there. Yeah.
So, Maria, we don't really know each other at all. A lot of times when I bring people on here, I've met them, like in person at least, or spoken to them on the phone. But we literally didn't talk at all.
No, we've known each other for about 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Just in the short amount of time we sat down and chatted here. So, what do you do?
Well,
I know it's a loaded question.
that is
feel
quite
free
a loaded question. I feel
go
like I have to
into-
take you through quite a long story, but I won't do that.
No, hey,
because
go for it.
You will lose a lot of listeners.
No. Oh, by the way, how long do you have? Are you?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm on
Okay.
my, yeah, that's fine. An
Okay.
hour.
Yeah, that's fine. Like
that
I
good?
like to do
Okay.
at least an hour.
Yeah.
Because, shorter than that, and it feels like we got to cut it short, and,
And I will tell you, I can talk to a brick wall. I think most people could tell you I have the gift of gab. So you might need to, cut me off and say, okay, it's been too long. We need to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So feel free to do that at any point. So who am I? I came to Greenville. I guess I'll start with that.
Mm-hmm.
I was a news anchor and reporter at WNCT for almost 8 years and ended up in Greenville after working my first job in TV, which is in Virginia at a small station there. And then prior to that, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Go Steelers, I guess.
Yay.
Yay.
Go sports.
Go sports.
Yeah.
And went to school at Robert Morris University, did the whole college thing, major, got a job after school. That's where I was in Virginia. And then my station actually was closed. Corporate was like, hey, you're not making enough money. It's too small of an operation. We are going to lay everyone off. So I think I had just turned 23. I was young and without a job. So I quickly started putting out resumes, and in TV you have to have a reel. So
Wait, did this just come out of nowhere? Were
Yes.
they just like, hey guys, I know we're on in 10 minutes, but don't worry about it.
Yeah,
We're done.
That is literally exactly what happened. We
Hold on, what?
had a morning show. So I was the morning anchor at the time. Had our 2-hour morning show from 5 to 7. Got off air, did cut-ins, which were just quick little news updates once every 30 minutes. Was off air for sure at 9 o'clock, and then we had an all-staff meeting at 10 a.m.
Is that normal, or did that raise suspicion?
I think there were some questions as to why, but it was also right before the holidays. We had it was December, the first week of December in 2013. So it raised some questions, but we thought maybe our boss is leaving, maybe there's a change in management. Well, then
all of the above.
right, the company, quite a bit, yeah. The company's vice president walked in and we're like, oh God,
Are we all getting bonuses?
This cannot be good. And they were like, yeah, so we're closing the station. And we're like, okay, when? And they said, well, you just did your last show. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It was crazy. I
Wow.
remember crying, but at the same time, it was kind of, what other kind of sign do you need that it's time to move on?
Yeah.
Was given a severance package that, was sad. I think I was only making like $21,000 a year anyway. So it's not
Yeah.
like I was like heartbroken over like great pay. It was I actually was working 2 other jobs in addition to that just to pay my rent. So yeah, anyway, it all worked out for a great reason. Put out some feelers to see what other TV stations might be hiring. And again, right before Christmas, probably the worst time to find a job in TV. So
Really?
Yeah, I think people like to stay through Christmas to use like vacation and whatnot, and usually they'll like really start searching
you
for
mean
jobs.
like openings aren't?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a really
right.
competitive industry, or at least it was. I think it's changed a lot in 8 years, 10 years. So I ended up in Greenville because there was a weekend evening anchor position opened at WNCT. And I mean, I'm telling you, I applied everywhere. I applied to a station in Hawaii.
Why wouldn't you?
Right. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I guess that's not the best example.
Landed in old Greenville.
I also applied to a station and I was doing phone interviews with a station in Wichita, Kansas. They offered to fly me in for an interview the same day that I was coming to Greenville for an interview. And I was like, okay, well, I'll let you know. Have some
not sure if
other
I want
opportunities.
Not sure if I want to do tornado stories every day.
Right. So let's do hurricane stories instead.
Oh, yeah. At least that's only like a few months out of the year.
Yeah. Those few months will take a few years off your life. But they offered me the job here at WNCT on the spot, and I took it. And then packed up my life and moved to North Carolina. But fortunately for me, I've always wanted to live in North Carolina. Vacationed here a lot as a kid. I have an aunt who lives in the Wilmington area. So was very familiar with more so like Topsail Island area and Surf City. Love those beaches. Love the beach.
Yeah.
Glad to be at a station that was a good proximity. It's still driving distance from Pittsburgh. It's like an 8-hour drive, but it's still doable. And yeah, moving to like the Midwest or West Coast or Hawaii, I don't know how often I'd see my family. So that's how I ended up in Greenville. And then fortunately for me, I knew I didn't want to be a weekend evening anchor forever because it's a difficult position.
I'll ask you more about how the struck, because like I am very curious about how that world works, because that's one of those things that's always in front of our face, like the news.
You have no idea.
We have no clue how it works. We don't know how these things work. Are you okay giving me like a peek behind the curtain?
Oh, for sure.
Cool. I don't know what that was.
Hey, that's okay. So was promoted after 6 or 7 months to morning anchor, and then stayed in that role for 7 years about. And then decided, hey, TV is really exhausting. And I think I got married. I was going to bed every night at 7 or 8 o'clock, waking up at 1:30 in the morning, at the station by 3 a.m. And it was fine for a while. But as you can imagine, 7 years of that was difficult, especially when you add in someone else in the mix.
Yeah.
You know, my husband, I was seeing him for like 2 hours a day, and then our weekends were either, cut short because I had to go to bed early on Sundays, or he was working another job also on the weekends. So it was just really difficult.
Yeah, you made it about 6 years and 50 weeks longer than I would have.
It is challenging, but and there are aspects I miss about news. So anyway, I left news, moved into a job at an economic development organization, the Greenville E&C Alliance. I'm the communications and marketing director. I just messed up my title. I'm director of marketing and communications. It's not like I don't already say that like a million times a week, but correct it there. Yeah. And I love it. It's a great role. And it's so much different having, I guess, daylight hours than working literally in the middle of the night while everyone else is sleeping.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. That schedule, I'm not joking. Like after the first day, it might have taken me 2 days, and then I'd have been like I can see into the future. This is not going to work out. So later.
It's hard. And a lot of people, your body clock has to adjust.
Yeah.
So, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, not all that bad. But then when the weekend rolls around and you try to be a normal person, I mean, it was like Saturday nights and I was asleep on the couch at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Which, I would be lying if I said I don't still fall asleep on the couch at 9 o'clock
Yeah.
every night. But it's different when you feel like you want to have a life and you can't.
Mhm.
Now I just choose to do that.
Yeah.
It's my purpose.
Right. So you moved on from the news station and you're doing media relations like broadly now, or just for specific?
So for the organization I work full time with, it's mostly all marketing and communications, and some of that has media relations specialty in it. But then my personal passion, so that's kind of like my professional role, like day to day. But I've really fallen in love with, this is going to sound so strange to like all of a sudden become in love with something. I guess a lot of people, once they realize that they are passionate about a purpose, they want to fulfill it. So for me, that was helping small businesses and nonprofits also kind of figure out their marketing plans and their roles within the media. So I wrote a book, Media Relations for Nonprofit Organizations.
I happen to have a copy of it right here. Look at that. Yeah.
Whether you wanted it or not, here it is. And looking back, yes, I really wish I would have titled it something different, An Introduction to Media Relations for Nonprofit Organizations. It's kind of like a mouthful to say. So I wish it had a different title, but it's not misleading at all. You know exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to scoff at that. People are okay with that show on Netflix right now. It's like the lady across the street from my cousin. She lives down the road from the McDonald's that I used to go to. That's
yes. Okay,
the title
fair.
is something like that.
And people are still watching
And
it and
they're super
consuming
cool
it.
with it,
So,
yeah.
okay, great. Thank you for making me feel better about
Of
that.
course. I mean, I was like, I know exactly what's in this book.
Right. There's no confusion. There's
Yeah.
no picking it up thinking, oh, I thought this was about accounting for businesses. No,
Right.
You know exactly what it is.
No, it specifically for nonprofit organizations, but could it be applied to other
Yes.
small businesses?
I
or-
would say the first, there's 10 chapters. I would say the first 6 chapters are very generic toward just understanding how the media works and how to pitch your story.
like a core curriculum.
Yes,
Yeah.
like 101 and 102. I would say probably the last few chapters are more specific for story ideas that nonprofits could use to pitch. But honestly, some businesses still might get some ideas out of that. So I would love to maybe follow up and write a second book specifically for small businesses, because not every business is going to have a communications team as part of it. Right.
This
yes.
one. This
Yeah.
business.
And it's hard. It is so hard because, you know, a business owner has to be good at so much, right? Like you have to understand bookkeeping, scheduling, the obvious like industry that you're in. Do you have time to promote yourself? Is that something that you think about? A lot of businesses don't. And I love talking to people and just giving them ideas. And in the nonprofit world, I have served on tons of boards and committees because I want to do it. And I always am giving probably unsolicited advice, whether they want to hear it. But oftentimes, like I'll have nonprofits reach out and ask, hey, how do I do this? Or how do I do that? So now I'm kind of getting into nonprofit coaching, which I really enjoy. And that's, I guess, more of like the long-term goal of the book of like, let's talk about how you can do this yourself, because chances are nonprofit budgets are tight. You're not going to be able to hire someone to do this for you or have someone on staff full-time dedicated to this. So I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to give you all the formulas, the methods, and then you can do it yourself.
How'd you get into that?
I have no idea.
Because it doesn't seem like
It's
there's
kind of
not a-
strange, right?
Yeah, and I don't mean to breeze by everything you just said. That was, love it. But I am thinking from college to news to news to news, and then to this. There doesn't seem, what's the red thread through there?
Well, I'm not
Or
sure
is
that
there
there
one?
is,
you
actually.
just kind of bumped into it and
Yeah,
you're like, oh, I really
so-
like this.
So I guess what really got me into nonprofits in general, when I moved to Greenville, I was trying to meet people, right? Like moving to a city that people knew me from my role as the news anchor, but I wanted people to know me, Maria, the woman who lives down the street, you know, like really kind of immerse myself in my community. And I think by doing that too, I was also helping myself, develop my own brand,
Mm-hmm.
and get to know your community. I think people want to watch people on TV who they see at church,
Yeah.
they see at the grocery store, you know, like,
because they can go, hey, I go to church with her.
right.
Right.
And you just kind of have that personal connection and genuinely you're part of the community.
And more people know who you are. Like it's an exponential thing.
Right. And to me, that was a value. Like I wanted to be part of the community that I'm reporting in every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I started volunteering at different organizations, and the Humane Society of Eastern Carolina was one of them. And eventually they asked me to serve on the board. So moved into a board position, and they needed to kind of restructure a little bit of their social media and concentrate on some media relations of putting out press releases.
And this is while are you still at the
WNCT?
Yeah.
Yes. This was probably, so I started at WNCT in January of 2014. And this, I would say I was volunteering there by like June or July of 2014.
Volunteering
so 6 months
on
after.
the board, helping them figure
Yes.
out
So 6 months,
how to do their stuff.
6 months after I started volunteering at the facility and foster some dogs. And then I was on the board November of 2017. Is that right?
I don't know.
I don't know either. It's something around
Somewhere
there.
around there. We get
I
it. Yeah.
volunteered for a good bit without being on the board and then stepped into the board position. Nope, 2016.
Yes.
Nope. I don't know.
Let's just go with that.
I don't know.
It was
I think I just got all
2016
my
or
years messed up.
2017.
Yeah, so
In that ballpark.
somewhere around there, I was on the board and really saw a lot of the struggles. I mean, this organization, to this day, donations are so important because they don't get funding from the county. They don't get funding from the city. They don't get funding from the government, any government. Grants come and go. But at the end of the day, they have staff members to pay. They have to keep the animals vetted, healthy, keep a facility running. And I love animals, specifically rescue animals. I could talk about that all day, but I won't. But I knew that literally every dollar makes a difference. And if they're not sharing their story, how are people knowing the importance of the community involvement?
Yeah.
So like people ask all the time, oh, well, can I donate anything aside from money? Yes. You can donate your time. You can donate old blankets, towels. It's like crazy the stuff that they might need at a facility. So just sharing that message. And then I realized, wow, I actually like doing this and helping them with their external communications and writing press releases more than I actually like my full-time job.
Is it kind of like puzzle's probably not the right word, but it's a challenge. It's like okay, we have a finite amount of resources and we need to get as much done with these as possible. And you have to step in and figure out what's the best way to do this.
Yeah. And I don't know that I even expected to have a role in that when I started on the board.
Yeah.
I think I just genuinely wanted to help the animals and realized that, okay, at the time, I mean, I didn't have financial resources that I could donate, but I could give them my time and my expertise. So through that, we kind of created a marketing program and put together like a committee. And through that, we help publicize fundraisers and different volunteer opportunities. So there's like so many parts to it. And this is probably every nonprofit, not specific to the Humane Society, but just my experiences with the Humane Society. But nonprofits struggle with recruiting volunteers, getting donations, spreading awareness about the organization, and then kind of like just maintaining their mission. Like, how do you do your mission without any of those other pieces? And it's hard. And marketing kind of steps in and can really help all four of those aspects come together.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I feel like that didn't make any sense.
No, it makes
when
sense.
I said it
I get it
in my mind, but
that's what I was getting at is it's like they have all those problems and they have a way to fix it. It's just someone who is able to take what they have and turn,
right. And I love that.
Turn it into, as much as it can possibly be.
Yeah, it is like a puzzle.
Yeah.
Going back to that, it is absolutely like that. And you have to take not just one step back, but like several steps back, look at the bigger picture and kind of figure out how can we essentially publicize all that's going on So all those 4 elements I talked about are able to come to some sort of fruition.
It sounds fun to me.
It
Like,
is fun.
so I
I was
get it.
enjoying it. And it was work that I knew was for a good cause. With the, you're going to see a direct benefit of the more animals that are adopted out, the more animals' lives are saved because they can come into a non-kill facility, which was the Humane Society. They're taken from kill shelters in the area, which I think a lot of people don't realize that most county shelters do euthanize for space, and humane societies and other nonprofit rescues do not. So the concept is adopt from any facility that, like an animal shelter, county shelter, local nonprofit, because you're going to save a life no matter where you adopt from. And my dog is a Humane Society alum. And that was like, just like so important for me to give back to where I got my dog from.
Yeah.
Because I know that there are so many other dogs in the same situation. Anyway, I'm picking up 2 foster puppies tonight, actually. So,
Fun.
yeah, I might not say that when I return them on Sunday because puppies are a lot of work, especially when there's 2.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I still love volunteering, but I guess my experience there kind of exposed me to a bigger picture that a lot of nonprofits are dealing with and a lot of challenges. And I thought, well, let me just put my information into a quick little ebook. It was only supposed to be about 3 pages as to how to send a press release to a news station. Couldn't stop writing. Decided I was going to take a little break. Kind of just got like burnout, I think, with news overall. Eventually decided to like leave news, got my new job, and then revisited this document that I was working on and then turned it into a book.
How long ago did you actually start writing it?
Probably in like 2018.
And
Published
then
in
you took a break?
2021.
How long was the break?
Ooh, like 2 years.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what, like a year total, maybe? Like
Of actual writing.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
very
And
cool.
I mean, there's a million things I would have done differently looking at it now and reading other books.
I mean, it's
but
it's impressive. Like
it's a short read.
I wouldn't.
It's short. It's a guide. It's not like a book that is going to give you everything you could ever imagine about marketing. It's not that at all. It is specific to media relations.
It's exactly what it is. It's a very well put together.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So that was my way of hopefully helping other nonprofits understand this, because I can't coach every nonprofit ever. That would be the most unrealistic thing. But I can give them a resource that they might be interested in.
Right. And I'm kind of spacey this morning. We may have distinguished. We probably did, but the work that you do there, that's what you're doing in your personal passion project.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
What exactly is it that you do with your day job?
My day job, my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So it's in economic development. So our mission is to recruit new industries, new businesses, and also retain current companies in Greenville, Pitt County. So we look for target industries. We had a research study done previously that identifies our best industries and opportunities for recruitment in manufacturing and pharmaceutical manufacturing, as well as medical devices and supplies. So if you look at the major facilities and industries that are here, you probably think of Thermo Fisher, Heister Yale, like these companies that employ over 1,000 people in our community.
Thermo Fisher are they pharmaceutical?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
I wasn't sure. I
pharmaceutical
knew that they were
manufacturing.
kind of attached. Is DSM still a thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, they're 2 separate companies.
Right.
DSM is another type of manufacturing company.
Thermo Fisher is in that same
Yes, they're
area
neighbors.
right there, though, right?
They're
Okay,
neighbors.
okay.
I think they actually have like walls that touch.
Okay. Yeah, and then Heister Yale's what did
Forklift
they used to be?
manufacturing.
Yeah. They used to be something else. What were they? It might have just been Yale was across the street. What the hell did that used to be?
I don't know.
NACO. Used to be NACO.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That is true. I did know that.
Yeah. My dad did a lot of work for them when
Okay.
he used to do like vinyl cutout stuff.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And they needed
Like
stencils.
a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah, to like paint
Right.
numbers on equipment and stuff, and then they rip it off. And so I spent a lot of my childhood
Helping dad.
picking that stuff out. Yeah, a vinyl. Anyway,
That's awesome.
if you've ever used a Cricut machine, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, and it was
Not my favorite
he had
thing.
This huge. I mean, it's like a Cricut machine, but like big.
Like
you know?
Cricut's Cricut machine.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, but there's so many there's so many industries here that have a huge presence that a lot of people don't even know about.
Mm-hmm.
So our task is to make sure that those companies stay here and that we are able to attract new companies that bring good paying jobs. So we're not looking for companies that, are going to pay their workers minimum wage. We want companies that are going to increase our average salary overall in the county. And
to make it more attractive.
Exactly.
For people to come here.
And allow people to enhance their lives because they're making a livable wage.
Right.
And I know that I'm actually in an MBA class or an MBA program right now at Fayetteville State, and I'm in an economics class, and we just had a whole essay about what is a livable wage. Can you say something is livable for one person and not another person? And it's a debate that, I'm sure will go on until the end of time. But you can say as a community that we want to increase our average salary or average household salary, because that means that people are going to be able to enhance their lives, essentially. So we have a big charge, but we are a newer organization, so we're still doing a lot of the building and making sure that, we have the resources, which we do in our community. We have a great workforce. We have a great tax structure. Infrastructure is great, especially with the new interstate coming through Greenville. Now we can, people look at our community and say, okay, we are looking for a community that has an available work source, nearby access to ports, a local airport, and we check all of those boxes. But then sometimes they'll say, oh, we also need to make sure that there's an interstate in the area. And for a long time, we didn't have that box to check. So now we do. So it's going to open more doors for companies that are looking to locate here.
The interstate that we now have, what are you talking about?
So
I feel like I missed something.
Yeah, it was announced. I think back in November. I-587. It will eventually basically be a spur of I-87. So it runs through Wilson to Greenville right now, and it's going to kind of it overlays 264. So it was a big project for a really long time. It was a goal, and now it's kind of come to fruition. So we're looking forward to marketing that, and there's still some work that needs to be done. You'll probably start seeing signs, if they're not already, on the now interstate status. Essentially, it had to go through federal designation, so that was the big hurdle. And our state had to do a lot of improvements to the road, the existing highway, to get it up to interstate standards. So now it is, and we're looking forward to using that in our recruitment efforts.
Okay. Yeah, I remember hearing something about it, like very vaguely.
Right.
But then the way you were talking about it, I was like, wait.
It's like one of those industry
things.
things.
Did I miss something?
For us, I guess the average person is not going to notice a difference.
Yeah. Like
driving to Raleigh, you're not going to notice a difference. But in the industrial recruitment, economic development world, it is everything. So it's a huge win for our community, and we're excited about that. So anyway, another reason why I was so excited probably about this specifically is because it gives me an extra thing to market about our community. So we send out an e-newsletter every month to site selection consultants, which are the people that companies will hire if they are looking at expanding or relocating their company. So they work with consultants to pick the best location for them.
Okay.
And then I send out an e-newsletter every month to these consultants. We have a list of several hundred of them. And so that was a great thing for us to advertise.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. So what type of, we know the industries you're trying to keep here, obviously, the ones we have. What kind of industries are you trying to bring to Greenville? So
we have a great opportunity in workforce development and kind of, I guess, specialized training programs for advanced manufacturing, which is kind of like the Heister Yales. And we also have Penco Products located here, which is a steel locker manufacturer.
Okay.
Their corporate office is in Greenville. They have a manufacturing facility in Hamilton, which is in Martin County. So not too far away.
Yeah.
And employs a lot of people from kind of the eastern North Carolina region. So those are companies that we have a skilled and trained workforce that any manufacturing like that would be probably a really good fit. And then we also have seen an increase in pharmaceutical interest. We obviously have Thermo Fisher and Main Pharma, Metrics Contract Services, I think is what they are formally known as. They kind of like brought together their branding there. And then CMP Pharma. So there are pharma companies that some of them are homegrown. And then Thermo Fisher is obviously the largest of that. And they just announced 2 major expansions. So we have a great workforce for that. Biotechnology is technically what you can get a degree in. And I mean, what's so great about pharmaceutical manufacturing, and I was very naive about all of this before moving into this role, and I feel like I've learned so much. But you can go to PCC and get a certificate in biowork or biotechnology, or I forget exactly what it's called, but it's only like your program can range from a few weeks to a few months to a year. And you can start at one of these companies making almost $20 an hour. And that's a rough estimate. Don't quote me on that for sure. But so you can get a high paying job in our community for no debt, almost like a very affordable education.
Yeah.
And
Pitt Community College, by the way, for people
Yes.
who don't know what PCC is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you're going to work for a company that's going to offer you benefits, healthcare, 401k, like these great companies who want to see their people succeed. So there's a lot of great opportunity in that for our community. And I think there's a lot of interest in more careers in that. So pharmaceutical manufacturing is a great opportunity for us to potentially attract more of those types of companies. And then, of course, ideally, we would love to see an increase in marine manufacturing too.
Really? Because we've got Grady White. Do you consider Fountain and Baja and all that down there in Washington?
Yeah. So essentially, looking at a bigger picture, Eastern North Carolina is a great place to do business. While, we work in Greenville, Pitt County, who's to say that if another boat manufacturer doesn't locate in Washington or New Bern or Morehead City, that Greenville and Pitt County wouldn't benefit. We probably would, whether someone's moving here, living here, sending their kids to ECU or a private school in this area. So it's kind of like if a neighboring county wins, we all win. Yeah. So we try to look at it bigger picture. And our neighbors are not our competitors. We are as a whole, and we want everyone to succeed. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. When all of Eastern North Carolina wins, when someone wins, I guess. I'm pretty naive about all this stuff. Me too. It's okay. I'm willing to bet that I'm more naive. So I would imagine on your side of things, your side being not the side that I'm on, which is clueless, about this sort of stuff. Typically, I would imagine some cities are known for a certain type of manufacturing, or like they're known for, like, if you're going to do this sort of business, go here. Right. Like you should set up shop in this city. It's the best place to do that. Is there a goal for Greenville like that? Is it like, do we currently have that? And is there we kind of want to maybe shift, or we want this to be our biggest thing? Is there any? So I don't know if I asked that historically, properly, I would say we were an agriculture town, right? Oh, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, there's still so much of that still here. So food and beverage, I think, is a great opportunity for us. And there's been some great news coming out of different announcements. The Eastern North Carolina Food Commercialization Center just got funding from the state government in the most recent budget, that they will be able to move forward with that. And that's a really cool project. I do not know every single one of the details, but encourage any listeners who want to learn more about it to look it up. It's encfcc.org, I believe. But that what's the basic? So essentially, it is going to be a location that smaller food manufacturers or people who are interested in making a product can use a test kitchen almost.
Okay.
So like you rent space in it, and then there's also going to be professionals there in the industry to kind of coach you through what you're doing. So if you're thinking about opening up let's say a bagel store,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to make your own fresh bagels, but you've never
can't.
done it before,
Right.
you may need to practice almost and make sure that your bagels are exactly how you want them to be before you open a commercial kitchen out of your own money and fund this huge thing. Let's, make sure that you are doing what you're expecting or like what you want to do first. Right. That might be a really bad example, but
no, I get it. It makes sense.
And that is not my expertise whatsoever, but it's a great win for our community too. So there's a lot of things that we could potentially get into. It's just kind of seeing what might fit well here.
Mm-hmm. Mm. What do you think would fit well here?
I think we have a lot of opportunity in our area because number one, our location is great. I mean, we are, close to the state capitol, close to the ocean. I mean, who doesn't want to live in that kind of proximity?
Right.
So I feel like a lot of industries also probably realize that that's a great asset too.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at homegrown companies. I mean, Grover Gaming is a great example. They are a great asset to our community. So we may have some opportunity in like the tech industry.
How big is Grover Gaming? I've heard of the name, obviously, and I knew that they were something that started here, didn't they? Right?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
So that's...
I think they have over 200 employees now.
Really?
Yeah. And they obviously serve multiple states. So they have employees located in other states as well to serve as like...
What do they do?
Sales executives. They make gaming software.
Okay.
So it is really cool. If you ever get a chance to tour their facility or something, it is very neat.
I know a math teacher from North Pitt. I don't think I ever actually had him. But I saw that he got a job there, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Seems a little... I didn't really expect that from you, but I guess, he's a math teacher. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
It was just, it seemed like it seems like a really cool company. I don't know much about it.
Awesome company culture.
Yeah.
They actually were just ranked as, I think, the second best place to work in a recent report. I forget the publishing organization of the report, but yeah, second best place in the nation to work for like small to medium-sized companies, which is really cool to have that right here in our community. Yeah. So they are a great asset, and we are grateful to have them.
Kind of went on a tangent there, but you were talking about Grover Gaming being a great asset to the community, and how, I mean, it's just a great spot for kind of anybody to come to.
I wouldn't say that. I would say you have to have the workforce here. So I think, okay, let me back up quite a bit. I think we have a great workforce. We have a very skilled workforce that fits wonderfully with manufacturing, whether that be advanced or pharmaceutical. We have the training programs that support them. At ECU, people leaving with 4-year degrees or graduate degrees, a lot of them are moving elsewhere. So we want to retain those students who are graduating.
Yeah.
We want to keep them from, sorry, Charlotte and Raleigh, but
you've got enough people.
Right. And I understand
enough.
that, there's going to be opportunities there that are not going to be here.
Yet.
That's the catch there.
Greenville is slowly creeping up on Raleigh, baby.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who move to Raleigh and move right back to Greenville. And we want to keep our graduates here locally and find them jobs and there's jobs that do exist. A lot of people just don't realize it.
Right.
You don't have to go to Raleigh to find a corporate job or to work for a Fortune 500 company. Like, there's that opportunity. And I guess our goal is to grow that. And short answer, no, we don't just take any company because, again, we want to make sure that we're growing our median salary.
Yeah.
So not every company is going to support that. And we want to make sure that the jobs that come here are going to fit our area and what our workforce is able to do.
And so trying to keep graduates here, I can imagine one of you mentioned that there are corporate jobs here. There are jobs that you could graduate from ECU with an engineering degree and stay right here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't have to go anywhere else. I mean, obviously the hospital's a big draw for a lot of people here. But like you said, not a lot of people know about the other things that go on. And I would imagine that's because most of that's on the other side of the river where college students don't really ever go.
Yeah, that could.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not in
Right.
their face. Like, all they see is the downtown artsy area, the cool little shops here and there. I mean, they obviously know about these bigger manufacturers around here,
Sometimes, maybe.
but exactly. That's what I mean. Like, I feel like some of them know, but yeah, I mean, most people don't think of Greenville as how big it is on that side of the river. Like, there's
Right.
there's a whole lot of industrial, shit going on over there.
Yeah, and not even just in Greenville. I have a friend who lives in Greenville, but she works at Pfizer.
Mm.
So, I mean, there's a lot of Greenville's a great place to live and it's super affordable and okay, so I guess I have a different outlook on this because I've lived in bigger cities, grew up in Pittsburgh. I lived in Winchester, Virginia, which is actually like a suburb technically of DC. Small town, super expensive.
Yeah.
Also why I had to work 3 jobs to pay my rent.
Ooh.
But so moving to Greenville, this is the most affordable place I've ever lived.
Yeah.
I've never had a utility bill as affordable as Greenville. When I can guarantee that, or almost guarantee that my power is not going to go out. Like when I lived in Winchester, my power would go out quite often. And I was paying way more than I'm paying here. So I think having that experience and knowing, like, I can say Greenville is affordable and my paycheck goes further here than other cities because I have that experience. Some people don't. And I can understand that, you hate to see increases on things.
Yeah.
But when you've lived other places, that's far more expensive. Greenville is wonderful, and I'm never leaving.
Yeah, I can speak from someone who's lived here their entire life, and I haven't been long out of the house, you know, but when I started paying for stuff on my own, I vividly remember my rent being a certain number. It was like the first apartment I split rent with a roommate, and our rent was like $804, I think, which is a weird number, but it was $804, and we haven't left this apartment we're in because like we just re-signed a lease because I was looking at numbers going, oh man, we can't leave here till we can buy a house because to me, rent here went up. But you're right. Like coming from somewhere like Charlotte or Raleigh, like you can still get here. Like what we have here, this 2-bedroom apartment that has a ton of space for a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
Even the numbers now, which I think are like $1,000, like $1,100 for here, that's still way better.
Oh, yeah.
Than what you're going to get in Raleigh or Charlotte.
When I was paying rent in Virginia for a 1-bedroom, very small apartment, it was like $725, and that was in 2012.
Right, where an apartment here is still like $400.
Right, and I was living by myself, so I moved here, and I got a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, really nice apartment in an apartment complex with amenities, pool, gym, and I mean and this was in 2014. My rent was $715.
Yeah.
On a first floor.
Yeah.
I literally saved money moving to a bigger apartment. And of course that was however many years ago and things, inflation and all of that, but things have increased in price, but I still was saving money.
Right.
So
a 1-bedroom here you can still get for like $900, whereas like in Charlotte now or Raleigh now or Virginia, I guess you're gonna pay $1,500 or $1,600 easy, and that's on the low end.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And so my husband and I say my husband and I, really just my husband, owns rental properties in town.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. And he really is he could easily raise rent to much more. But his whole, I guess mission is he went to ECU for graduate and PhD program.
Oh.
And during that time, he was at ECU. I think he moved like 9 or 10 times during a 7-year time frame, which is
I don't
unheard of. Like absolutely not. No, thank you. But he rented from people who were just terrible landlords, didn't take care of their properties. He said there were countless times that, there were issues. Their HVAC unit would go out. And I mean, could you imagine being here in the summer without air conditioning?
Yeah, I can actually. I've done it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's terrible. Like
it's trash.
Absolutely not.
It's the worst.
So one of the reasons why he was inspired to kind of start purchasing rental property was to give college students the experience that he wished he had.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a cool story. And most of our tenants are all women. And we are I guess, like very committed. Like I would not rent any location that I would not live in myself.
Right.
So that is like,
That's cool.
And I don't mean to make myself sound like snobby or like anything, but like I have a high standard of living. I have expectations, and I'm very proud of the work that he's done himself to kind of be able to make these homes safe. They're like all convenient locations, like within the ECU grid area. And he's a responsive landlord. If there's an issue, I can't tell you, unfortunately, it's, not something you want, but there was a leak in a unit, and it was 10 o'clock on a Friday night, and he was over there fixing it. And not all landlords are going to do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, just going to say that all of that, he still gets market rent. He could probably charge more, and people would probably they would probably pay more, but what's fair is fair, and affordability shouldn't be a factor when it comes to safety.
Yeah. I will say, from what I've seen on you guys' Instagram page, you are making really, really, really dope looking places to live.
That's all him. I pick out the paint colors sometimes, and usually
then it's
like
not all him.
and
Don't
usually
undersell
like
yourself.
the fun stuff as far as the like tile or the countertop. But really, I mean, he's a great a great vision.
Are you guys like interior designing the places yourselves, or?
For the most part, he will do a lot of it himself. I used to have more of an interest in it than I do now. And I think I also just don't really have the time to spend on it. And he's awesome. He does, I would say, 95% of it.
Wow. What did he do before that? I know we're here to talk about you, but I'm curious.
That's okay. You can have him on your own podcast. He's
Yeah,
not
I
as
guess,
much
yeah.
of an extrovert as I am, so I don't know that he would agree to it. So I'll do his PR for him right now. Yes, you're welcome, Drew. He is, or was, and still is a professor at Barton College.
Oh.
So he teaches geography classes there.
And he's
online.
doing all this other stuff too.
Yeah, so he teaches, I think, 2 classes a semester is what it usually averages out to be.
Okay.
And then he full-time has started doing property management and has a real estate license too.
So what are your goals? Where do you see yourself? I want to get inside your head a little more.
So I think this is a really exciting year for me because I booked my first speaking engagement. And I will be speaking at the Best Friends Animal Society's national conference in July.
You doing like a TED Talk type of thing?
Kind of, yeah.
Like you're on stage just talking about a
It's about media relations and how animal rescues can use media relations to do all the things that we kind of talked about before, of, making more money, boosting engagement, getting more volunteers, and adopting out, of course, first and foremost, more animals. So I'm really excited about that, and also super nervous. So yeah, hopefully it goes great. I'm hoping it does. But that, I think, is kind of something one of my goals is that I want to speak to more organizations and help people reach their goals in that aspect.
You said you're super nervous, didn't you? In all the work you did with the news station,
you want to hear the truth? You want to hear the truth?
Yeah.
Okay, it is live.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's live. But I am looking at one camera on the news, looking at one camera. There's no other person in the studio except the meteorologist. So looking at one camera is not hard.
Right.
Looking at an audience of 300 people, I'm terrified.
You got a teleprompter and stuff too, or is it just paper in front of you and you're just kind of
on the news? Or
on the news?
Yeah, teleprompter.
Yeah, okay.
And I guess the trick of that is reading a teleprompter without making it seem like you're reading the teleprompter.
Right, yeah.
Which is kind of easier said than done. So the best advice I ever received was look at the teleprompter and pretend it's your mom. Pretend you're just chatting with your mom. And I really took that and noticed when I think about that my reading style would improve.
Yeah. When you first went into it, did you read it as if you were reading off a teleprompter, or were you like putting on this? I feel like I would have a tendency to get on and be like, today, a school bus full of children did whatever. Sorry, that's just where my brain goes. My brain goes dark. That's
Woo!
Made it safely home.
There we go.
I brought it back home. Yeah, we're fine. But I would go into that like news anchory, like
yeah. Oh, for sure. I could probably turn my news voice on right now.
Do it.
Okay.
Please. Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Okay. I need something to read. I need I need a prompt.
Here, you want to read this?
Okay, let me
read something from your book.
All right. Do you want your nonprofit to be featured in news outlets for free while maintaining meaningful partnerships with local journalists?
Okay.
So it's like kind of more just like large and in charge, I guess.
It sounds like
and that's a really bad example because you would never read a question mark in a news story. That would be my first edit that I would cut out. I'd be like, no, we're not doing that.
Why not? Why wouldn't you read a question mark? Does it feel leading or something?
Yeah, I think the way you inflect your voice makes it sound like you're confused about the topic.
Okay, yeah, that
almost,
makes sense.
Which, so like inflection's a really big thing, and when video will go over top of when you're not on camera but there's video playing, it's interesting sometimes the things that you have to do with your voice or like with your mannerisms to make the sound that you like want to make. So sometimes
because people can't see your face.
Right. And you have to like overdo it.
Oh.
So it can be very challenging. And now when I watch the news, I have, so much respect for the work that goes into every story. I think a lot of people don't realize there might be a 30-second story up there, but there was a lot of work and a lot of people and effort that went into writing that.
I can imagine. Have you ever thought about doing voiceover work?
Yeah.
You should.
This would not be my voice. I'd probably go a little deeper or something.
The thing you just did, like it sounded like, so I've hired a couple voiceover people for like small ads I've done and stuff.
Is this you hiring me right now? No,
I could.
I'm kidding. But yeah, I've thought about it.
You sound like when I'm going through, I'm like female voice, neutral accent, bam.
Hey, I worked very hard to get this neutral accent. Let me also say that.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that.
I had to lose some of my Pittsburghese.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Most people who are on the news don't have an accent. Do they work hard to get rid of that?
Yeah, and a lot of markets. So if I had, let's say I had like a very prominent like Northeast accent, there is no way that I would ever get a job in North Carolina or Texas.
It's not going to go over well here.
No, it would not.
No.
It wouldn't. So a lot of those accents, you literally have to lose them.
Yeah. So what about a Southern accent? Like if someone has a Southern accent that works for one of these news stations, I keep wanting to say WITN, but I know that's not who you work for. That's just the one that's right down the street, and I see it all the time.
Yeah.
What was it?
NCT.
NCT. Okay. I'm going to try to remember that.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, really.
So if
former newsie, any of them I can relate, and I'm sure we all have very similar experiences. So
I imagine there's a lot of people who work at these news stations who are from here and like have a Southern accent.
I don't know about that.
Really?
I think probably 90% of the people at a news station would be transfers or transports to this area.
Interesting. Is there a reason for that? Do you know, or is it just
a competitive
based
field.
on? Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's just a competitive field that I think people will move for the job, and Greenville has turned into a starter market for a lot of like younger reporters. So a lot of people who may end up here, maybe they went to ECU. That ECU is really putting out a lot of journalists now. I know as their communication program grows, a lot of these reporters are, as their students, they're interning at local stations and then getting job opportunities. So maybe there's some sort of connection, but I would say probably 90% of them are not from this area initially. Especially the anchors. I feel like anchors usually come here as their second or third market, and they're usually always from somewhere else.
Right.
And they may call Greenville home eventually.
Right.
Like me, I wasn't planning on settling down in a market, and then
but the rent is so cheap.
But yeah, the rent is so cheap. And then when I met my husband, and he was a homeowner, so it just kind of like fit differently once I realized the possibilities that were here that I wouldn't have gotten anywhere else.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, like people see a 30-second news story and probably don't think much about the work that goes into it. What is some of that work that goes into it? Because I do want to get into I want to get that peek behind the curtain we talked about earlier.
Yeah. So let's say it's a story that's going to run into, let's say it's a 45-second story with one interview. So normally there will be an assignment editor who's looking through some content for the day that says, hey, reporter Maria, we want you to cover this today. I want a VOSOT, which means VO, which is video over tape, and then SOT, which is like a soundbite.
Okay.
And then usually there's a trail VO behind the SOT. So it's like, I'm getting real technical, but essentially it's, if you look at it on TV, you're going to see anchor's face, video, soundbite with an interview,
got it,
and then more video. So it's
but
called
there's a lot of legwork that goes
VOSOT.
into that.
Right. So the first thing is you get assigned the story, or you pitch the story as a reporter. So reporter Maria is assigned a story about adoption numbers at the Humane Society. So I'm going to say, okay, so I'm going to do some research first so I'm aware of what are the adoption numbers. Are they up? Are they down? So let's say that adoption numbers are down and they need, they can't take any more animals in because they can't get any adopted out. So reporter Maria is going to call the Humane Society and say, hey, I'm doing a story about this today. I would really like to talk to someone there if you're interested in kind of sharing, and we can get some information about what's going on and hopefully give a push to our viewers to adopt an animal. Okay, so Humane Society says, sure. So probably the first 30 minutes that you're there, you're going to do the interview. You're going to set up and, interview the director or whoever you're talking to. And then the next 30 minutes, and the interview may take 10 minutes, but they're only going to use 30 seconds of the soundbite probably.
Right,
so it's whatever pieces that you feel like are
relevant.
Right. And like they sound best in a soundbite format.
Yeah.
So when I do media coaching to like nonprofits or companies or whoever, I always say, speak in sound bites. Let me explain to you what that is. Because most people will just share their information and not think about, oh, someone's going to have to splice this.
Yeah.
This has to be a complete thought in 15 seconds. How do I do that?
And it'll sound better if it's not spliced.
Correct.
Yeah. It sounds like you actually have your shit together.
One full thought.
Yeah.
So, then the rest of the time is going to be spent getting B-roll, which is the video of the dogs, of the cats, of, people working with them or playing with them in the play yard or something. So, okay, that may take an hour and a half by the time you get there and get back. So once you go back to the station, you have to write your story. So now you're importing your footage, you're writing out the anchor intro, which is like the first part, and then you have to write, okay, take VO, so I want the video to play here, and these are the 4 sentences that I'm going to put under the video, and now I'm going to lead into the soundbite. Sometimes you're going to say, okay, well, the shelter director is hoping that these trends will improve, and now we're going to hear from the shelter director.
Yeah.
Right. And then to wrap it all up, this is where the trail VO comes in. The shelter director's soundbite ends, and then you're going to have an anchor read again, but the anchor is going to be under video, so you're not really going to see them. And they're going to say, the Humane Society's open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for information on how you can adopt your next pet. Visit them online at hsecarolina.org or something like that. So usually there might be more substance than that. This is just an example.
That was still, I was still thinking, wow, that was a really good,
So that's written. And then it has to go to the producer for approval. Okay, producer approves it. Then the anchor has to approve it. And oftentimes, an anchor might change a few words here or there to make it more readable for them.
Right.
There's some words that people just cannot read on air.
Yeah.
Like for the longest time, I had a very difficult
Rural.
time. I was just about to say that. Rural Eastern North Carolina. I can say it now, but when I moved here, it was like,
yeah.
I
North Carolina.
could not get the rest of the word out.
Yeah.
So for a long time, I would do everything I could to just avoid that word.
Can we say I don't know, somewhere near a back road or it's got fields around it?
A green space in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So it's funny what, changes might have to be made.
What would you change it to? Would you change it to?
Oh gosh, I forget. I would usually just take out rural and just say Eastern North Carolina. Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. Especially just moving here and trying to learn a lot of the interesting names of places like Chinkapin.
Was Chocowinity hard?
Chocowinity.
How about Canita?
Canita?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you call it
remember.
Conto?
Of course I did.
Yeah.
How can you not? I remember.
Conetoe. Conto, but it's pronounced Canita.
Canita.
Yeah.
And I remember a newer reporter starting, and when they were doing a story, I think they weren't live, they were in the studio, but the story had something to do with that area because it's like right on the edge of Pitt County. And I was reading their script. I was like, hey, you're going to want to put a pronouncer in here. And she was like, for Conto? I was like, yes, exactly. This is why we need a pronouncer. And we like got into it a little bit. And I was like, fine, make a fool of yourself on TV.
Yeah.
I'm literally trying to tell you the lesson that I learned.
You're going to get
But
blasted.
that's fine. And then she ended up making the change. It was just kind of a
Smart.
funny exchange.
Yeah.
And then she was like, whew, thank you.
Yeah.
Because you were really going to get eaten alive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People are, I mean, I'm not even from that area. I mean, I'm from Belvoir, which is close.
Also, not the easiest name to say.
Really?
Belvoir. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Belvoir.
I just say Belvoir. I
Belvoir,
don't,
yeah.
it's probably like got a root in some European language.
I think looking at it is more intimidating than actually like saying it. But
it sounded,
I would say moving
fancier.
here, anyone who's listening to this, please give grace to your newscasters because it is not easy to learn a bunch of cities at once.
Belvoir. Yeah. That sounds better than Belvoir. Yeah. Anyway.
It is difficult.
So that all happens in one day?
Oh, yeah. I'm not done yet. Ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
once the anchor gives approval, then you have to post it online.
Mm.
So you have to take your little VOSOT that you wrote, which is about 45 seconds of content, and create a web article.
Mm.
Normally, that means that you also need to add some links, some imagery. Maybe the video, once it's aired, will be added as well. And then you got to post it on social media. So there's like a lot of steps. And that's just one story. Normally, reporters are assigned 2 or 3 of these a day.
A day. Wow.
Yeah. So mad respect to all the work that goes on behind the scenes.
And you
in a newsroom.
said a reporter, like what time are they there in the morning? And is that when they
so,
start their stuff?
Yeah, let's say, so the 90, as they call it, is the news hour between 5 and 6:30.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a newscast at 5, 5:30, and 6. I think some are even extending now to 4 and 4:30 p.m. So reporters who report in the 90 usually arrive around like 9:30, have their morning meetings, and they're out getting their stories by 10. But they need to be back at the station to turn in their scripts for the anchors, who usually come in around like 3.
Okay.
So, and
3 p.m.?
yeah,
Okay.
because then they work till like 11 p.m.
Okay.
or midnight almost.
Okay.
And that was a smooth process, only if people pick up the phone and agree to do an interview with you. Right.
What happens if they're just like, no, we don't have time today?
You beg and plead and sometimes cry on the phone.
There's no other option?
Sometimes you can
It's
say like,
hey, they said no. Can we do like a story on Arby's or something?
hey, you got to do, at the end of the day, it's almost like you either need to do the story you're assigned and find a way to do it and get creative, think outside the box, or you pitch another story of equal value.
Okay.
And it's rare that a lot of reporters, which this is what I would try to do as an anchor and also kind of like mentor reporters to do this, is to set up as much in advance. So if you don't already have a story, that's probably where an assignment editor is going to assign you something. Mm-hmm. If you already have a story because you created the idea yourself and kind of already did the legwork on it, then usually you can pitch that and they're going to say, okay, yeah, that's good.
Did you keep like a bank of work? So as a reporter, would you be able to say you're like, I have this idea for a story. No one assigned it to me. We don't actually need any stories for today or really this week or whatever. I don't know. But you're just like, I want to do this story. Could you go out and do it and just have it like maybe
in your back pocket?
Yeah, if it's something that's like isn't necessarily time sensitive, you know?
We call that evergreen.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that exists. You're almost like a reporter right now.
I'm
you
efficient.
could do it. But my advice from being in a newsroom is not to tell anyone you have it in your back pocket.
Because it's going to get used immediately.
Yep.
Okay.
Or there's going to be a hole in content and someone's going to throw it in their show and it won't get the value or the time that it deserves.
I was going to ask you about that. Did you ever have a story that got put in a slot that you were just like, damn it, like I really wanted this to go with this sort of stuff because it would have had more impact?
Yeah.
Do you remember what the story was?
Oh gosh, I feel like it's probably happened so many times. And nothing, I mean, it's not anything like against the station. It's just you also have to be okay with doing a ton of work and it being ripped away from you.
Yeah.
There have been times that I had done feature stories on, a great story in the community, but then I was sent out to breaking news and that feature story never aired, ever. or you had plans on interviewing someone about something and then breaking news happened and you had to go somewhere else. And my experience as a reporter in Greenville was only 3 days a week for about 5 months before I moved to Anchor full time. And then I would still do feature reports, but they were more planned out and I was given several days to do them because I had other responsibilities.
What are the responsibilities of an anchor?
Well, you show up to work.
That's yep.
And I can only really speak from my morning anchor experience, which I feel like is unique because we didn't have any management there. I was kind of basically management.
Okay.
So I would get to work around between 3 and 3:30, depending on how well I slept and if it was a hair wash day. I mean, honestly, different priorities. So I would get to work between then and then go through the show. And we had a producer who would work usually from like 10 p.m. until 7 a.m. And they were there all by themselves. Really sad. Yeah.
That's rough.
So if you think the shift of a morning anchor is bad,
yeah,
that's really tough.
I did a few night shift things and I'm good.
Yeah.
Hard pass on that.
Right. And they put the show together. Normally I would approve and like proof everything and maybe make a few suggestions as far as like, hey, I think this story is really, and a lot of times news is developing, especially internationally, because it's daytime there. And we may still be catching up on things that are going on. Excuse me. So we have to then look through it with a fresh set of eyes and say, hey, like, I think this is going to be a bigger deal today. Let's move this up to the top of the show. And your A block is usually the most important stories or the most, I guess,
pressing or time sensitive. Or...
Right. And in morning news, it's almost like all rules go out the window because your viewers are really only listeners because they're getting ready in the morning. I know very few people who actually sit on their couch and watch the morning news.
Yeah.
So your viewers are listeners. So everything has to be very descriptive with words. And you also have to keep in mind that they're usually watching between 15 and 20 minutes at a time, and then they're out the door. So they're not watching for a long period of time. So it's almost like you need top stories every like 20 minutes. So once I would proof the scripts, then I would usually like get ready for the show, start, getting, touching base with the reporter who was there, seeing what they needed, if anything. I would also have to record some radio hits that we would send off to local radio stations.
Yeah,
so
I was wondering about that. I didn't know if you guys broadcast straight from.
Typically not. I don't know how they do it now. I know there's new partnerships. They kind of change every few years. So when I did it, I would record them and then just email them over in a file. So that's how I did it. And then I would be on air at 4:30. Yeah, and stay on air until 7. And then we would do network cut-ins, which are those like 5-minute news updates every 30 minutes until 9. And then I would start producing the noon show, which was writing, stacking the show, like figuring out your A block, B block, C block, D block. And then from there, did the noon show at noon and then would leave.
Okay. Now, I saw something. I was on Dickinson. I don't remember what I was doing. I don't know. I was on Dickinson. I parked somewhere. And I saw a reporter near the Believe in Greenville mural. She was actually right out in front of it. And she had set up a small ring light of some sort and her phone or someone's phone on a tripod. Is that the typical setup these days, or is it like...
It's where it's going.
Yeah.
I'll say that TV is changing significantly. I think reporters are now encouraged to be more like self-sufficient and like digital in their content. And I have some personal opinions about that because I think you lose quality whenever you start shooting things on different devices.
Yeah.
I understand that it's cheaper. I understand that it's less, I guess, responsibility of like equipment upkeep.
It's efficient. You're not having to have a reporter out there with a camera guy.
And here's my other issue with that, though. What about safety concerns?
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a lot of instances that I had to fight to get someone to go with me on a story because I felt unsafe.
Yeah. So wait, you literally will be out there by yourself. Like just like hit record.
Yeah. You can even do live shots by yourself. And I don't know if you saw the video of the reporter who was literally hit by a car while she was doing a report in severe weather conditions. The car like slid on ice and just like hit her. I mean, it didn't seem like a major hit, but I mean, she was still hit by a
You
car.
were hit by a car, yeah.
Right. Whether it was a love tap or not, I mean, like,
Yeah.
not planned. And she was by herself doing
And
a
if-
live shot
and if
with
there
her
had been-
back facing
Exactly.
what was happening. So I think that's my, concern. And being on the morning show for so long, that's your skeleton crew. You don't have more people than what you might need to press the button to get on air.
Mhm.
There were some days, especially holidays, that it was an anchor, a meteorologist, a director, and maybe a producer. And sometimes a video editor. So there were some days where there were just like a lot of, there should have been more people there. There could have been, but because of staffing, you can't control when someone calls out sick. And when one person's the only one who knows how to do that job, it can be frustrating. But again, just that's how it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, if in my perfect world, no reporter would do a story by themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I could imagine that, I mean, aside from getting hit by a car, that's kind of a freak thing. But if there had been a cameraman there to like, he at least would, hey, watch out. Like,
Right.
we need to move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but like, especially if you're like something like a breaking story of some sort, like you were talking about. I don't know what sort of things you've covered. I imagine a lot of breaking stories around here are more car wrecks than anything. But say it's something like a dangerous situation is happening.
Would you like an example?
Yes.
Okay, so
I was actually getting there. I was
Yeah.
just trying to do it in a way that wasn't like, hey, what's
That's
the craziest
okay.
shit you've ever covered?
well, I'm a blunt journalist from Pittsburgh, so
All right.
there's no sugarcoating anything with me, unfortunately. I wish there was. I feel like that's why I rub people the wrong way sometimes, because I'm just
You seem
a
pleasant to
little
me.
abrasive, maybe. I don't know. So a long time ago, this was not anytime recently, I was reporting and I covered a murder that happened in broad daylight, okay?
Whoa.
And I was, did the story, interviewed the police, and like did, the basic things. Well, at the time, there was a producer who was like, okay, we need you to go interview the family of the person who died. And I'm like, okay, number one, that's like uncomfortable to be like, hey, I'm Maria. Can you talk to me about your son who was just tragically killed?
Hey,
hated
that
that. I
line
hated
wasn't
that.
quite right. Could you back up and maybe do it again
Can
for
you
me?
have more emotion? Like,
Yeah.
it's
Could you
terrible.
cry a little more?
It's terrible. But anyway, I will also add that the person killed, this was gang related,
Mhm.
and the person killed was a known validated gang member, as they call them.
Mhm.
I had to, so you can imagine discomfort of going to this house where I'm probably like not familiar with the area, not familiar with this city at all.
Right.
And one validated gang member could be more. People
Yeah.
are emotional, like anything could happen. And I didn't feel safe.
Were the people who committed the murder, were they like apprehended or were they?
No,
were they,
that was the
they're
other part.
gone?
They were not. Yeah.
See,
so
that would,
there's like
you want me to go to the house by myself of the person who was just murdered and the
where
people.
there's other people probably who were friends, relatives, whatever. I mean,
who
who's,
could also be in danger and like, I feel for him, but I don't want to be in the crossfire kind of thing.
yeah. And I mean,
That's- as blunt
unfortunately,
as that
that's
is,
what you
that-
have to think of.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I thought of it. And I, stood my ground. I said, I'm not comfortable going here. And they were like, well, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, fine. If I'm going to go here, someone else is coming with me.
Yeah.
You're coming with me.
Yeah.
And it was a little, they were like, I was like,
Oh, you're worried?
oh, no, right? Okay, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So, and I think when you're a young reporter and kind of newer to these types of situations, you do what is expected of you or what is asked of you because you're told to.
Right.
But when safety is a concern, there shouldn't be any question.
Yeah. I imagine because it's such a competitive.
If you don't do
Like-
it, someone will.
Right. Somebody who isn't.
And you have to be okay with saying, okay, fine,
right, yeah.
they can do it. I don't recommend them doing it because, again, not safe. Or I don't feel safe. You can't say that I guess there's some situations that aren't going to be safe. But if there's any time that like you don't feel comfortable. But fortunately, we had management change after that. New team came in. That would have never even been on the table. So,
Have you ever seen the movie Nightcrawler?
yes.
Is that realistic at all?
No. I don't know a lot of like stringers, as they call them,
Yeah.
in the industry anymore. I don't know that anyone would really pay for footage like that.
What's a stringer for people who don't know?
Someone who would
People who haven't seen Nightcrawler.
yeah, someone who would film accident scenes or anything that might be of interest and then sell their footage to a TV station or newspaper or whoever might want the visual element of it.
I just thought about something. If you haven't encountered them much in the last maybe 10 years or so, I feel like the reason might be because you could just ask, hey, man, did you get this on your phone? Were you here?
Exactly. So I think
there's enough people around who are being buttholes with their phones out.
Right. And I'm not saying that maybe CNN wouldn't pay for exclusive footage that they know no one else is going to have. Like that might happen, but chances are this day and age, it's going to hit Facebook Live before it's going to hit
and that is
your
a public
email
space
inbox.
And you can just pull that off.
That's right. That's what I love when people, I mean, I don't love it. It's kind of unfortunate that people don't understand that you don't own anything on Facebook.
Right.
Like you don't. Also, fun fact, Facebook does not guarantee you free speech. Only the government can guarantee you free speech. Mm-hmm. So Facebook can do whatever it wants.
They're a private business.
Right.
Yeah.
So fun fact, anyone who didn't know that and says free speech.
Same
Constitutional
reason,
amendment only applies to the government allowing you free speech.
Same reason you can't walk into, I was going to say Walmart, but McDonald's or anything without a shirt on or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Exact same reason. Anyway.
Yeah.
When I saw that movie, that was wild to me. Nightcrawler, for anybody who hasn't seen it or doesn't know, is Jake Gyllenhaal movie, and he's what you said, a stringer. Mm-hmm. He just kind of fell into it, but he's like right up in the face of like these horrible accidents.
And I think he became like obsessed with it. It has not. I mean, I have not seen that movie in probably. I mean, it's kind of older, maybe like 10 years old, maybe
2014-ish, I think.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's almost 10 years.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to hear that today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know that that's really a typical experience.
Yeah.
And he really became obsessed with it, like unhealthy.
It's a really good movie. You should watch it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah. It moves quickly. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think of. I'm really curious about I know you came here to talk about all of this and everything, but I really want to talk to you. I want to pick your brain just.
Sure.
And the news stuff is very interesting to me, the way that it's produced and stuff like that. Because I'm into that, like, sort of thing. Not the news, but, you know.
Yeah.
And I've just always been curious to see how things like that are put together. Because I know that there's more to it than
so much
than just sitting up there and, you know, just coming up with it off the top of your head.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. Not at all. There's a lot that goes into it, and I think it's forced to change a lot in recent years. So there's a bigger emphasis on websites,
mm-hmm.
and people are consuming news electronically. Obviously, as times are changing, that obviously just makes sense. But I think news stations have had to pivot to, they're funded through advertisements, almost 100%. So local advertisers are running commercials, are also now purchasing ads on websites, are partnering with different sponsorship opportunities, and that's how stations make money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad to see some of those opportunities dwindle. So stations are making fewer dollars, which means they're employing less people, which means sometimes the people they're employing are making less money than they were currently,
mm-hmm.
or they're trying to, hire less experience because they can't afford for more experience.
Right.
So I guess, and that's just in broadcast. Newspapers, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Subscriptions are down, advertising dollars are down. So personally, I pay for my journalism and I am proud to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a subscription to the Daily Reflector. I have podcasts that I pay for. I'm on like their, like exclusive thing to take away or get like exclusive content.
Mm-hmm.
And those are like news podcasts. I donate to NPR. I pay for New York Times. I pay for Washington Post access. I pay for Wall Street Journal access. And I am not like obsessed with news. I'm not a news junkie, but I respect journalism and know that that's what it's going to take to keep these very important aspects of our community alive.
Yeah.
So I know not everyone has the luxury of paying for news, but if you do, I suggest that, I would encourage someone to look into doing that and, essentially consuming news that is going to be higher value because you have to pay for it. I know that kind of sounds silly, but there's a reason why there's paywalls. Like, if you go to a newspaper's website and you click on something and you can't read it unless you're a subscriber,
Gotcha. All right, cool.
like,
Gotcha.
It's because that's what it's come to.
I made a confusing face for it, like a confused face for anybody who isn't watching or if the angle wasn't on me. I don't know. I was like, what's a paywall? I feel like I should know that, though. That makes sense.
So when people complain that, like, newspapers are putting something on their social media and they can't access it for free. Well, again, private business.
Yeah.
And they have to make money. You reading that article is not making them money.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but at the same time,
it is what it is.
I'm happy to support local journalism and, the work that people do because it is really important.
Yeah. How did, so all the stuff we talked about with the news, like that's a whole lot of skills that I imagine you, coming out of college, you went to college for
media arts and TV production. And journalism. So it was like a double major track.
You had the tool belt, right? I
didn't go to a J school necessarily, which is what people call like journalism school. But I went to a school that offered the classes I needed.
Right.
I was a small fish. I was a big fish in a small pond. I only had class sizes of like 20 to 30 students versus, a J school where you'd be one of 300 students in a class.
Gotcha. Okay. So actually working in the field, just like damn near anything, you typically tend to learn more than you do in school?
Oh, for sure. Internships were vital.
Yeah. By the time you left, the skills that you had that you'd developed in your time in news, how did those translate to what you're doing now?
I think I have interest in a lot, and this is going to sound so totally strange. As a reporter and journalist, I had the benefit of learning a little bit about a lot. Every story I covered was different. I didn't necessarily have a beat that I only covered crime or I only covered education or I only covered politics. I hate politics, actually, so I would never have covered that. But sometimes you had to do all of it.
Right.
So I had the benefit of learning a little bit about a lot. And I think that helped me become a fast learner in different tracks and realize that, okay, I can write blogs for nonprofits. It almost doesn't even matter the topic because I can research it and figure it out. So in economic development, covered, business expansion stories basically my entire career. But now being on the other side of it, like my press releases that I send out to local media in Greenville, I know how to write them. So a reporter is going to be like, oh, wow, this is perfect. I don't even really have to do much work because it's already written for me.
Yeah, because a reporter wrote it.
Essentially, yeah. And I think that's like a great value of something that I can bring to the table that allows, my work to stand out because I have that insider perspective, but it is unique.
Yeah. It's crazy. I wasn't expecting that answer, I guess.
Oh.
I wasn't really
What were you expecting?
I don't really know. that one kind of surprised me, and it just brought up a thought. It's so many times in life you're doing something, like for you it was news, for me it's photography, videography, all the stuff I do, the podcast. And skills come from those things that I don't think we're usually expecting. Like I would have expected you to maybe say something like, it made me really good at speaking in front of people, or it made me really good
not.
at it made me better at speaking because I'm constantly
forced to do it,
reading and having to do, verbal gymnastics over certain words like rural.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that's what I was expecting, but what you said totally makes sense. I just wouldn't have guessed it. Like it made you a better researcher and writer, I suppose. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm now pursuing a master's of business administration in marketing, specifically number one, to help me with marketing, because I feel like I only know surface level and I want to know more. And what better way to do that than, earn a degree while doing it and working in the field.
Right.
But I'm also loving my research-based classes. Who would have thought I would actually be thrilled to write a economics paper about a topic?
Yeah.
Oof. 10 years ago, I would have been like, that's so funny. She would never want to do that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
here I am already pulling research articles because I'm thrilled to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like to learn about different things. And I may only really scratch at the surface and not become an expert on anything,
Mhm.
but I would rather, know a little bit about a lot. I guess that's the best way of saying it.
Yeah.
I know that I've said that multiple times.
Totally understand that.
But I will also say, kind of going to what you said, I have learned to value storytelling. And at the end of the day, if you ask me to sum up, what do you do? Like, yeah, okay, I'm in marketing. I'm a marketing professional, former journalist, recovering journalist, maybe if that's what you want to call it. But I would say if I had one word, I would call myself a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that can be done through, and you probably feel the same way, like photography, like you're telling stories, whether it's visual, whether it's through words, whether it's through video. However you're doing it, you're sharing stories.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I just love that and feel like there's so many different elements and dimensions. And the creative minds are, I feel like now they're finally appreciated.
Yeah.
And there's so many opportunities. And I'm very proud to kind of be in that circle.
Me too. I didn't think I'd ever be here.
Yeah.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. What I wanted more than anything, literally like 4 years ago, was just to be like, I was like, when someone says photographer in Greenville, I just want my name to come out of someone's mouth. Like I want to just be in that pot.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I think I've gotten
You
there.
definitely are, for sure.
Thank you. And that was all I wanted. That was
Okay. So what's
So I'm
next
here.
for you?
not really sure yet. Not really sure. I have ideas and I have goals and aspirations, but getting there, they seem very far away. But so did that other goal, that smaller goal for me. I mean, it was a big goal for me, but compared to opening up a co-working space or something.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how life just really comes so quickly? I mean,
Yeah.
you think like, oh yeah, I'll get to that in a few years. And then a few months you're like, oh my gosh, if I don't do it now, I'm going to lose this chance.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm worried about with this particular project that I've got rattling around in my brain. It's just not really feasible right now. We're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think the next step is probably just finding an actual space, because at the moment I don't have a studio
Got it.
that I work out of. I work out of Catch Creative a lot, like
Okay.
with those guys, which is another thing. That was crazy. Like the first time that they contacted me to do some work for them, I was like freaking out because I
Yeah.
wanted to work with them.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm just going to keep doing what I do and hope that people notice, I guess. And Justin reached out one day and had like a project he wanted me to do, or wanted me to do some stuff for Smash Waffles or something like that. I think it was Smash Waffles.
Yeah, and they're great to work with. I've worked with them on like a freelance a few things, and I mean, cool concepts. And again, there's every day's different. There's always something else going on.
They're awesome. Justin and Hunter are my dudes. But yeah,
But you want to develop your own brand and be, your own space.
yeah. And that's like right now we're in the process of doing stuff with this podcast. Like when I introduce myself, it's hard for me I'm like, all right, which one should I talk about?
Podcaster / photographer / graphic designer /
Wow.
it's like all these things.
Yeah. Because eventually I want to bring other people in who have a voice or have something to say and
Like
produce
a podcast producer.
like a podcast group.
Okay, listen,
Yeah.
I've been thinking about doing a podcast, and I'm stressed out over all this equipment and stuff. And I was actually thinking, I wonder if I could get it produced somewhere else
Yes.
and just host it.
Right here.
Okay.
We already do that.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. We actually had 3 podcasts we were producing. Me and Brighton were one of them. Like it was this podcast, which was the first main one that's never going anywhere. It's just my baby.
Yeah.
And then we've got About That with OB, which is a podcast we produce with Bria Smith, local girl, really cool, really chill. She just comes on and talks about whatever's on her mind.
Awesome.
She actually writes her episodes out because it's not usually a conversation.
That's how I would do it,
Yeah.
just because that news background, I have to have a rundown.
Yeah.
If I don't have a rundown, forget it. I'm
if
going to
you're
get off
doing it-
track. I'm not going to have any idea what's happening.
If you're doing
what
it by
day it is,
yourself,
what time it is.
yeah. When there's a conversation element to it, it's easy to just let curiosity drive the conversation. Sometimes there's spots where it's just like, Like we had one, like I'm going to point it out like 20 minutes ago. I was like, it happens. But the other one was me and Brighton telling like scary stories. Like we would just tell like horror stories, and I would do some sound design on them and everything to try to make it.
You had to have some sort of layout.
Yeah. That was just, we would read stories. We'd go on Reddit. We'd ask people, hey, can we use this? This is a cool story.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. We credit them. And then, I mean, if you want to go listen to it, Tales from the Shadows, it's still up. We got about 10 episodes.
Stories.
Yeah. Well,
I like true crime.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's too much research for me. I'm not a researcher.
Okay, well, I feel like there's a lot of true crime in Greenville. I think we could probably revive our own true crime Greenville podcast.
Although
totally it would be a lot of research.
Yeah, but you're used to that.
Oh my gosh, can I get sponsors or something? That's going to be a lot of time and effort. It's going to be a lot of resources.
Yeah, that's something that I do tell people whenever I talk to them about, like, they'll ask me sometimes about starting podcasts, just because in my friend group, I'm the dude who does that.
Yeah, you're the dude with the podcast.
And I'm like, look, first things first, don't do it thinking you're going to make a lot of money.
No, unless you already have some sort of sell sheet and you're like sponsors of every podcast and everything. I mean, you're lucky if you're going to break even.
Right.
That's like with my book. I lost so much money on that thing, but I wasn't ever looking to make money.
Right. Yeah. I started this just because I wanted to, I guess,
Yeah.
you know, and like if we start making money on it one day, yeah, great, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be, obviously I'm going to welcome that, but don't go into it thinking that's going to happen. Go into it with a passion for whatever it is you're talking about and make it the best you possibly can, because that's the only way you're ever going to have a chance for this to actually become something, which is why when I started this one, I started with this stuff. Like I didn't start it.
You went all in. I love it.
Because anytime I would listen to a podcast that was recorded on a phone or something, like in your car, it's super obvious. And I listened for about 15 seconds. And then I'm like, I'm out the door. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mad respect for all of this. You put a lot of time, effort, money into this, and you can tell it is a 1,000% professional production.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you.
Well, listen, I'm not an expert, but I am a consumer of a lot of podcasts, and I'm with you. If it doesn't sound good, I'm not going to listen to it.
Oh, cool. Thank you. And I would love to produce your podcast.
I just got to come up with like a good idea, but I think I do have a good idea, but the issue would be the people I'd want to interview aren't local. So I'd have to get them in through virtually or like something like that, but also have standards of their equipment that they would need to use too.
Right. That's something that I struggle with too. When it comes to any of the Zoom, like I've done a couple on Zoom and I don't mind it. Like, it is what it is, and people understand. Like, this one guy was in New Zealand, I think, and that one was just straight Zoom call. Wow. Like, video.
Yeah, no way around it.
Yeah. Now, I had someone else in London, and I got her to record her angle on her phone.
Okay.
Like, I always ask. I just had a phone call before you got here. Another guest who's going to be remote, and I was like, hey, do you have any way to record yourself outside of just recording the Zoom call?
Right.
If you can set your phone up, or if you know somebody who has a cheap camera or something, whatever.
And that's unique for your podcast because a lot of people don't even bother doing a different camera angle.
Yeah.
A lot of people just do like the Zoom cuts, which I'm sure is fine. It works, but I love the different angle because it makes me more interested in watching something. Because honestly, this day and age, all of us are on Zoom a lot of the day. Mm-hmm. So if you give me something that's not this with like a blurred background, I might be interested.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your kind words. I try my best.
Yeah.
I truly do.
I am honored to be on this podcast. I really am.
Well, I am honored that you came on and that you had this long conversation with me.
I don't even know what we talked about. I feel like I blacked out. I don't know.
We went everywhere. We were all over the place. But that's how it is. So, Maria, if you would, plug all your pluggables.
Oh.
What you on?
All right.
Where you at? Where can people find you?
Instagram, Maria Satira Media, or Maria Satira TV. Both of those are my accounts. I use them interchangeably, but mostly the media one is for, freelance work, and then the Maria Satira TV is personal. So if you want to see my dog, go to that one. If you want to see my work, go to the other one.
Yeah.
I have a website, mariasatira.com, and my name is spelled MariaSatira. mariasatira.com. Or if you want to shoot me an email, if you want information, if you want to learn more about like nonprofit communication, I have tons of free resources on my website. You are welcome to check that out. And you can also send me an email, maria@mariasatira.com. I have Facebook, Maria Satira Media there. And I have others, but I think that's pretty much what's updated and like the
easiest way
ways
for
to
people
connect.
to get information on you. Got it.
Yeah, that was probably a lot. I feel like most people are more efficient in sharing all their stuff than that. But yeah, Maria Satira / Maria Satira Media. Type in Google one of those and you'll get some stuff.
Yeah. All right, guys. So make sure check out the video description or the show notes. All the links for everything will be down there. You can find all Maria's stuff down there. You can find everything from Small Stuff Media down there, About That with OB, Small Stuff Podcast. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all at Small Stuff Podcast. Again, on Twitter if you want. You're just going to see a bunch of old tweets. But am I forgetting anything? Follow Small Stuff Media on Instagram. Follow About That with OB on Instagram. Share it with your friends. Maria, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We are out.